A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do, brother.
Gauge drop, Mr. Choi.
Gauge and drop, sir. Marshal Pentecost on deck.
Greetings and bienvenue. Come on in, sit on down. Glad to have you. Today we are talking about Pokemon and Pokemon Dex entries, specifically how weird they can be. For example, Macargo. In Pokemon Sapphire, the Dex entry states that Macargo's body temperature is approximately 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Or a Larvitar in Pokemon Gold, where it states that it feeds on soil. After it has eaten a large mountain, it will fall asleep so that it can grow. Again, in Pokemon Sapphire, Rhyhorn's brain is very small. It is so dense that while it runs, it forgets why it started running in the first place. It apparently remembers sometimes if it demolishes something. This is expanded upon in Pokemon Fire Red, where it stated that it shatters even skyscrapers with its charging tackles. And we're all aware of Frostlass, where it states that it freezes hikers who have come to climb snowy mountains and carries them back to its home. It only goes after men it thinks are handsome. Not only are these Pokédex entries wild and weird and crazy, but many incur the idea of game-breaking, world-breaking mechanics. So I thought, why not dive a little deeper and partner with an old favorite, Porrico, to see what successful Pokemon sorry, this is actually them. Hello?
Hey Stern, it's Donnie calling from Porrico Acquisitions. Just calling to let you know some of those Pokemon that you ordered for that video aren't doing so hot. We've got some that we can send your way, but things are going really rough down here.
Well, things have been tough for everybody. I mean, the YouTube algorithm as a whole is...
If you could let me finish, that would be excellent.
Sorry, go ahead.
Awesome. Anyway, we do have some stuff to send. These are not the cream of the crop on our experimentation. A lot of them are really dangerous and deadly, so we figure maybe they'd be best served working with you.
Well, you know, well, that sounds fine. Just go ahead and send over what you have, and we can make a video out of it. So, yeah.
Alright, peace out, man.
Great! Alright, see you later, I love you. Without much further ado, let's go ahead and hop into today's video. Hi, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern. Welcome to the channel. While you're here, don't forget to drop down below, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff that makes me and YouTube happy, and let's take apart some monstrosities, shall we? They say that slow and steady wins the race, so why not start with the slowest of Pokemon, that being Slowpoke. While it's not slow speed-wise, the name gives some interpretation of kind of what's going on behind those cold, dead eyes. One key aspect of this Pokemon is its tail. Weirdly enough, the tail has become iconic throughout the franchise and merchandise and media as well, as it first started off with it trying to fish for a shelter. Throughout the first couple episodes of the Pokemon anime, we got to see this Slowpoke trying to fish and evolve. Eventually it does so, and it stands up on its hind legs, becoming a Slowbro. We then get to see in Pokemon the movie 2000 what happens if that shelter attaches instead to the head, granting this Pokemon immense psychic abilities as Slowking. We also got to see later on in Galar, which is weird, a reinterpretation of the idea of illegally farmed Slowpoke tail. Yeah, early on in the games it was referenced that Team Rocket was stealing Slowpoke's tail because they were great for making food and selling to black markets, but now it appears that they're kind of a commodity that people just kind of have, that you can find and utilize to cook food, even feeding Slowpoke tail to your Slowpoke. So I wanted to really dive onto that idea here and thought, what if the tail itself burnt up? I really wanted to go for a fire water type or something of that like, and thought about how we do the same for shellfish. And given that Slowbro is the shellfish Pokemon, I thought, why not play up this idea here? Slowpoke is already such a sad and dim-witted Pokemon. I thought, what can we do to make this tail just a little bit sadder? Tail, get it? Anyway, I played up that idea and thought about the idea of sunburn. What would it be like for a Slowpoke to sit out all day fishing and never catch anything? What would that look like for this Pokemon? I went with the idea of this blistered and hardened shell across the top of the Slowpoke and this withered tail from it not having any luck catching anything. From there, the idea evolved into other processes as we brought in the Porrico type of storyline and played into that idea of this inner cooking, this inner combustion. Think the idea of the self-cooking hot dog, but played up onto a living animal. God, that's terrible. But anyway, I really love the design, love the direction that we ended up going with the look, and I feel like it adds a complexity to an already very simple Pokemon. So this is Slowcook, the seafood Pokemon. While undergoing research on breeding Slowpoke with spicy tails in effort to increase in meat sales, these variant evolutions developed overheated skin and withered tails. Their internal temperatures continue to grow in power until they eventually self-destruct. Some, however, have continued to overheat, leading to speculation that their dry skin has grown tougher to counteract other side effects. It is unknown how large of an explosion is being housed within their bodies, but for this reason, Project Sunburn was deemed a failure. Moving right along, you guys know my feelings about future Paradox Pokemon. I've done several videos on it, but I really wanted to take a look at what we could have gotten from these designs. I looked at a Pokemon like Clawitzer, how it's such a cool Pokemon, cool design, harnessing this huge cannon, and how it's able to utilize that as a larger, more menacing part of its body. I wanted to expand on that idea, play up the idea of this cannon evolving alongside the Pokemon, but incorporating some of that technological aspect to it. So for this, I really started out by going in with that future Paradox type of vibe, but not wanting to capture exactly the design, look, or speculation of that energy. Really just going the course of what if robot Pokemon, but kind of pushing what we already have as robot Pokemon out of my brain just a little bit, keeping some of the aspects that I liked, but moving everything else out. I wanted this thing to feel like it was comprised of wires and circuitry, while also playing into that huge cannon. A big part of the struggle for this design, truthfully and honestly, was not just hopping straight into the cannon. A lot of it comes down to the body as well. I wanted that to feel familiar, to feel like it's still in some ways Clawitzer. But, again, the cannon has to be a main focal point as well. I feel like while I do expand on the idea of the cannon claw arm thing, I still need the body to have some reference and resemblance to the original Pokemon. Again, if you're gonna go such a drastic route for one side, there are some areas that you have to maintain for familiarity's sake to the others. That way, even though the Pokemon is changed, you still kind of know where it's at. I think about Pokemon like Zigzagoon, where we got regional variants in Galar, and we got this black and white and pink type of design, that even though it was very different color-wise, the familiarity of shape was still there. Something for us to latch onto and know what we're looking at, know where that reference was. Here, I wanted to do the same thing. Keep the body, the tiny, tiny shrimpy body of this Pokemon very much the same, expanding on a few areas, admittedly, but harnessing a lot of the change and big structural differences to that claw. And oh boy, did I go with some changes to that claw. I looked at the idea of plasma rifles or rail guns and used that as a key inspiration point for the look, turning this once physical claw and embodiment of strength into now a technological ray gun, like the kind that you'd see in sci-fi movies. Something that was devastating and powerful, but still captured a lot of that sci-fi type of coolness that we see in future Paradox Pokemon. So meet Clashinen, the railgun Pokemon. Advancements undertaken after the discovery of future Paradox Pokemon created Clashinen, a powerful form of Clawitzer capable of devastating blasts, powerful enough to wipe out entire civilizations. Fortunately, Poryco scientists were able to incorporate a shutoff switch into its design. The only problem is that none of the scientists are actually able to get close enough to turn the Pokemon off. For this reason, Project Rail was deemed a failure. By the way, the name Clashinen comes from German for railgun, that being Schienenkannon, whereas Clawitzer is named after the howitzer, which is a different type of cannon. All of it is canon and not canon, but regardless. Oh, this next one is fun. We can't talk about mixed up, mashed up Pokemon, specifically those in Galar, without talking about the fossils. I love fossil Pokemon. I've talked about it to death. In fact, when I first saw the Galarian fossils, a big part of me was like, wow, I hate this. But over time, I've come to really enjoy the look and design of these fossil Pokemon. So much so that I saw this video as my opportunity and excuse in many ways to mash up all of those fossils together. I mean, the idea is that we don't know quite what went with what, and a lot of the understanding and extrapolation of the ideas brought in here by researcher Karalis is confusing, to be kind about it. So I decided, what if instead We mixed them all together into one big monstrosity. Dear God, it's terrifying. It's terrible. I hate it. And if you're looking at what we're drawing right now and saying, Stern, none of this looks like it goes together. Psst, that's the point. So I mixed up all these parts, actually going out of my way to find what is the most calamitous way to throw all of these pieces together. And yeah, I really dig the direction it went. I wanted to go with this centaur-like design that felt like it had too many limbs. Parts of the tail of one side were meshed in with the tail of the other. Shapes that didn't exist in any of these forms somehow came to exist in being familiar to one or the other. Take, for example, the neck on this thing. The neck being blue and having that fin from Donklevish doesn't make a lot of sense, but in some ways it does, given that it has that yellow Pokemon part on there mixed into that blue. It just feels like these pieces have kind of mixed and meshed together in ways that they shouldn't to create this Frankensteinian atrocity. And I love him. I just want to give him a big hug. Either I might be frozen, electrocuted, or blasted with dragon energy, yet to be determined. I dig him. In fact, that brings up a really good topic. As I say in most of these videos, I am terrible with abilities. So let me know down in the comments what abilities these Pokemon should have. Specifically this one, because my goodness, I didn't even know what typing to give it. So let me know what abilities you think this Pokemon and the rest from the video should have down in the comments below. I look forward to reading those, and I always do. Calamasaur, the Calamity Pokemon. Documents obtained by Galarian researcher Kara Liss uncovered a bizarre set of mismatched Pokemon. Once these documents were under Poryco control, it was decided to push these evaluations further in creating a Pokemon that harnessed the power of the various fossils discovered in Galar. While we anticipated a powerhouse of calamity, we were instead met with a Pokemon that had an inherently peaceful nature. It is currently stored in Sub-Basement B as Project Revival has been deemed a massive failure. This thing was designed to end worlds, to be as powerful as 4 Pokemon mashed together, only to discover it doesn't actually want to fight, and the true nature of these ancient Pokemon was that they were peaceful. Alright, this next one is just kind of a power fantasy of mine, playing up the idea of Greninja. Greninja is such a cool Pokemon, working its way even into the Super Smash Bros. Universe. My god, it is phenomenal. One of the top favorite Pokemon of most Pokemon players. Let me know, do you like Greninja? Because for me, it really fits into that whole a little bit too cool on purpose type of camp. I like when a Pokemon is cool on accident, because when it feels like they were designed to be cool, that's where things go a little haywire. So I decided to make it even cooler, looking at the idea of Greninja as the ninja Pokemon, as well as the first Pokemon that we actually see in canon outside of Floette to have the bond phenomenon. I figure, why not? Why don't we go look at this here? Bond phenomena is such a cool idea and concept where players are able to put their abilities, their own look and design onto Pokemon, and Pokemon are able to take on those abilities to kind of evolve their own look and design. I dig it, but I had to think, with a ninja-based Pokemon, what would happen if it didn't have something to bond to, but had the ability to have this bond phenomenon? Well, given that Ronin literally translates to warrior without a master, that's kind of perfect, right? So I thought up this idea of this Ronin Greninja, having it be a little bit darker, a little bit more sleek. In fact, the body I rounded out just a bit more to make it feel like it had a little bit more of an intimidation factor. When designing a lot of these Pokemon, I try to think of what they would look like in the overworld or in the anime, and I picture this form of Greninja coming up against a normal form of Greninja, and this one just towering above it. Just a little taller, just a little wider and more broad with that muscular frog-like shape to its body, and then moving those X's from the tops of the thighs down to the knees to a more star-studded area so that that X, that crossed out, that no master type of symbol can be front and center. I, of course, when wanting to make something cool and ninja-esque, threw black on top to cover a lot of the blue, and I removed the tongue. Gross. I don't know, that's weird. I don't know why I said that, but I removed the tongue of the design, replacing it instead with this water. Rather than the water shuriken being an added weapon, the water is now a part of this Pokemon, making it in itself a living weapon. And I was able to use that water to create these waves that kind of jut out on either side, and this massive tail at the back to mimic the tongue, but also to give a little bit more feralness to the design and kind of look like a cape, because cool guys in comics and movies wear capes. I can't say the same for real life. I've been kicked out of many a library. Ronin Greninja, the ninja Pokemon. Upon hearing of Pokemon forms being bonded to trainers, our researchers decided to attempt an artificial bonding process. This experiment obviously began with Greninja as the most viable candidate. However, upon experimentation, it was discovered that no researcher or scientist had voluntarily bonded with the Pokemon for this project, instead feeling terrified of what may come out of this process. This left us with a Greninja capable of the bond phenomenon, but with no trainer to be bonded to. Project Ronin has been classified as a failure. The Pokemon has since escaped the Poryco facilities and is likely seeking a trainer worthy of the bond phenomenon. So far, none have been found, and Poryco is left to pick up the pieces. I didn't realize it when going over this video, but we spent a lot of time in Galar. I'm kind of figuring that out right now during recording, that we spent a ton of time there. Maybe in the next video we'll move on to Paldea or Sinnoh or a different region, but for the moment I wanted to look all the way back at Gen 1 and combine that with our Galarian Gigantamax phenomenon and ability. I looked at one of my favorite old school Pokemon, that being Muck. I remember seeing this Pokemon in the anime and falling in love. I love how much that he just smothers Ash and how smelly and disgusting he is, causing crowds to retch in agony upon being in any vicinity of this Pokemon. And I thought, as a world breaker, that feels like it kind of works, right? It's a big sludge monster, and big toxic phenomena are rampant in the media, in movies, all of that stuff. Hedorah is one of my favorite Godzilla enemies, and he's essentially a giant muck. Big, toxic monster. Peter Dinklage is putting out the Toxic Avenger later this year. It is an idea, it is a concept, and it is coming to full fruition. So I wanted to do the same here, using Pokemon that already exist like Garbodor as reference, and then playing into this toxic melting type of vibe. I wanted this Pokemon to feel like it itself was melting from the inside out, expanding on the idea of Muck's greenish tongue and inner mouth to create this inside burning type of look. This ancient and old and just natural type of burning fuel, this irradiated energy coursing through its veins, slime, more muck? I don't know what to call it, but I 100% dig the look, and I picture this Pokemon being an absolute nightmare on the battlefield. While its stats aren't insanely powerful as most Gigantamax Pokemon aren't, I still feel like the entire look of this thing as a whole fits such a vibe. I even wanted to make the hands itself melting, make the face feel like it's melting, like this Pokemon in itself can't hold itself together. Probably works a little bit better as a Mega, given that so many of those Pokemon are known for just kind of being in agony at all times. Gigantamax Muck, the sludge Pokemon. While investigating Galar, our researchers came into contact with Gigantamax Pokemon. Astounded by the transformative abilities of the Dynamax crystals, synthetic forms were created so as to unlock further Gigantamax ability. One Pokemon selected for its malleable properties was Muck. Unfortunately, however, upon Gigantamaxing, this Pokemon began to emit toxic fumes that wiped out all trainers and Pokemon nearby, requiring them to receive immediate medical attention. Furthermore, the synthetic crystals led to a more permanent form of the Gigantamax phenomenon. Project Goo has been labeled as at large by a particularly funny former researcher and has been deemed a failure. The project, not the researcher. Well, both, technically, I guess. I do have to say this last design is one of my favorites, and weirdly enough, one that almost didn't make it into the video. If you're a part of our Discord, then you'll know that we have the Pleb Plus program. That's a subscription for just $3 a month, where you get access to exclusive channels as well as images of thumbnails early. So you get to kind of know what's coming down the pipeline before anyone else. So with that, I went ahead and talked to some of the people in that Discord chat and said, hey, here's what I'm going for, here's the reference for this video, what do we think? Is there any Pokemon that we feel like I'm missing? And luckily, one member suggested, why not Mimikyu? Oh my gosh, thank you, member Pixelated, that was fantastic, because duh! Why not? If we're doing monstrous world-ending style Pokemon, these absolute threats to humanity, why not focus on something that is already inherently scary? The idea of Mimikyu is that what lies beneath it is so scary, so bad, that it could kill anything that looks at it. But also it has this storyline of wanting to be like Pikachu, because it accepts and understands that Pikachu is a mascot type of Pokemon. So it makes this disguise, it does all this stuff. I don't know why I'm telling you this, you guys already know the Mimikyu lore, most likely. If you don't, look it up, Pokedex.com or Pokemon.com, I don't know, look it up somewhere. But here I wanted to play up that idea, really focusing in not on Pikachu specifically, but on the old school Pikachu. You remember Round Boy? You remember Ball Pikachu? I wanted to look at that with this more vintage style look and play up that type of idea. Because much as Mimikyu feels abandoned and lost, that design for Pikachu as well was abandoned as the show began to pick up speed and gain popularity. They changed the design to make it more appealing to other people and left Fat Pikachu in the dust. What a perfect counterpart and matchup for Mimikyu and old Pikachu. I don't want to keep calling him Fat Pikachu. For Mimikyu and old style Pikachu. It feels like they just kind of go together. They work in a certain synergy. So again, thank you Pixelated for mentioning this in the Discord chat, because I dig this Pokemon and I am so glad that you brought it up. Mimikyu, the vintage Pokemon. Upon the recommendation of a fellow researcher, the Pokemon Mimikyu was brought in for testing. It showed signs of wanting to become more like the Pokemon Pikachu. Our best efforts were to establish it as a reference to a long-forgotten form of the Pokemon. As we allowed it to build a costume from a more rotund Pikachu plush, it found that it liked the wider frame, the more spacious build, but craved more, and so began to patchwork together the costume, larger and larger. And as it did, this Pokemon inside in itself began to grow larger and larger. Mimikyu shows no imminent threat to humanity, and so Project Hand-Me-Down has been labeled a success. The same cannot be said for other Pokemon. They may be in danger. This may be a threat. So, who was your favorite and who are you adding on to the team? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're there, check out our Discord down in the description. Our Mimikyu Pokemon from this video was actually suggested by one of our Pleb Plus members over on the Discord. That subscription gets you added benefits within the Discord itself, like being able to comment and talk about Pokemon that you want to see in upcoming videos, as well as get access to thumbnails and ideas early. So, I hope that I can see you there. If you're not a part of the Pleb Plus program, still join the Discord. I'd love to have you as a part of the community. We have a quick growing community that I'm really pumped about. So, all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me. And I'll catch you in the next one. But hey, before we go, I want to give a big shout out to all of the people who help make these videos possible. There are a million ways that you guys can support the channel. One is watching, liking, subscribing, doing all that stuff. But another is dropping down into our Patreon, where you can support the channel by becoming a higher tier member, like Mario Panita, Dan Hassel, Chompy Katchan, Kobo4231, Elandriel, Sky, Yuja Sakaki, Drake Null, Jeremy Sunday, Justin Grenier, Siren Shadows, Kaylin Cat, Sticks TV, and Dan Bush. You can also become a YouTube member for just $3 a month. That gets you a ton of exclusive perks, like getting videos early and your name shouted out at the end of videos, just like we're doing right now, like Crimbo McSwizzle, Kaylin Cat, Somni Stars, Siren Shadows, Zed Ravenmore, RJ, Lynxia, Liam Wood, and an extra special shout out to some of our newest members of the YouTube membership program, those being Reggie Hustle Jr., Echo Arashi, and Moxie. But thank you guys so much for the support. I hope I can see you in the next one. Big heads up, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of this channel kind of becoming a thing. I'm really excited for it, so if you want to see that extra special video dropping later this week, I can't wait. I'm pumped. Script over. Super pumped about it. Really excited. I hope you can be there because this is really embarrassing to say. I love you.